Last year's Galaxy S6 signaled a major design departure for Samsung, but the phone was far from perfect. This year's Galaxy S7 seems to be a direct answer to most of the glaring issues found in the S6, but is the phone actually worth your time and money? Well, let's find out. The design of the Galaxy S7 hasn't changed much from last year's model, and that's mostly a good thing. The phone does sport a few small incremental changes, however. We still have a solid aluminum frame sandwiched in between 2.5D glass, but this time the back is curved along the sides to compensate for the added thickness. This in turn makes the camera protrude slightly less and makes for a phone that feels all around more svelte and comfy in the hand. We just can't believe Samsung finally wised up and is no longer trying to compete with Apple on who can build the world's thinnest smartphone. On the front, you have a gorgeous 5.1-inch Super AMOLED Quad HD display. Samsung seems to have tuned it a bit from last year's model. Whites are now brighter and cooler, and the auto brightness can be fine-tuned to better suit your taste. Simply put, it's easily the best display on the market, and you won't find this level of quality anywhere else but from Samsung. The Galaxy S7 also features a very minimal always-on display. Basically, it's a widget that displays the time, date, missed calls, text messages, all the things you'd normally have to fully wake your phone to check for. On the top, you'll find a combination SIM and micro SD card slot, although Samsung doesn't support adoptable storage. This was a core Android feature we saw introduced in Marshmallow, and a major bummer given the only internal storage option available here in the US is 32 gigabytes. Inside the Galaxy S7 is a 3000 milliamp hour battery, which is a big increase over the 2600 milliamp hour battery in the S6. Although you would expect battery life would be much improved, it's still not much to write home about, at least not in our use. We saw around 12 hours of battery life with around 2 to 3 hours of screen on time. It wasn't terrible by any means, but definitely nowhere near great. Perhaps a throwback to the Galaxy S5, Samsung has gone ahead and made the Galaxy S7 waterproof. The phone now carries an IP68 ingress rating for dust and water resistance. Samsung says the phone can easily last about 30 minutes fully submerged in about 1 meter of water. This doesn't mean you should take the phone with you into the pool, but you can feel safe knowing that if it ends up in the toilet, it'll be just fine. The Galaxy S7 is also sporting a Snapdragon 820 quad-core processor, and the processor loads up apps and web pages lightning quick. 3D gaming is super smooth. It's everything you'd expect from a processor this powerful. But overall performance is somewhat mixed. We notice a lot of stutters and odd millisecond delays, but we have a feeling Samsung's TouchWiz software is more to blame. It's not something the average smartphone user will notice. The new camera in the Galaxy S7 is pretty great. At 12 megapixels, it's a little lower resolution than what we saw on the Galaxy S6, but bigger pixels on the sensor allow it to capture more light. This makes for better looking images during lower lighting conditions. The camera also uses something Samsung is calling dual pixel autofocus, which results in insanely quick focus times, almost indiscernible to the human eye. Overall camera performance was top-notch. We did notice Samsung going a little overboard on the noise reduction, making for overly smooth images, almost like a water painting when cropping or zooming in. And low-light photos can't even hold a candle to those on the Nexus 6P with HDR Plus enabled, but they do fire off much quicker. The software experience on the Galaxy S7 is pretty much what you've come to expect from Samsung. It's still running their heavy TouchWiz custom UI layer on top of Android, and has more software features than you can shake a stick at. Some of them are pretty great and can be useful, but for every useful feature, there are a handful of others that are unnecessary at best and redundant at worst. Simply put, the Galaxy S7 is one of the best Android devices on the market, and we really shouldn't expect anything less from the world's leading Android manufacturer. But there still are a lot more Android devices launching this year, so exactly how long Samsung can hold on to that title remains to be seen. Be sure to check out our full Galaxy S7 review on Phandroid.com, which dives into everything we talked about here in this review a little bit more. I am Chris Chavez with Phandroid.com. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.